Hey everyone, Assalamu alaikum, and again, welcome to another nightly presentation in terms of here in Ramadan. And again, this is just amazing for me in terms of overall and how this is happening. I'm so grateful. Again, just for me, just some of the responses that I've gotten, truly amazing in terms of what's happening. So thank you for following along, everybody, in terms of what you've been doing. Let's kind of recap a little bit of what happened yesterday, and just the understanding of the three levels. If you didn't catch yesterday's presentation, I urgently like tell you to go and seek that, actually listen to that one. That one, it's really set up in terms of understanding how to get yourself to a certain level of understanding in terms of the understanding of certainty and how we got there. And there were three levels in the Quran in terms of what we talked about yesterday, and ilmul yaqeen, aynul yaqeen, wa haqqul yaqeen. And those three levels are essential in terms of understanding how, in the Islamic side of things, how we look at these aspects and how these things actually are set up for that. So as you move forward through these presentations, there's a lot of information, and if you really choose to kind of take yourself to another level, I would highly recommend just kind of taking down some notes. And these things, like, guys, I'm presenting every day with a PowerPoint. So these things, I have to put them together. So I have to take the time, I have to research, I have to put this stuff together in terms of the resources, understanding who said what, making sure the elements are there. So this is my job, this is what I do. But ultimately, what I would tell you is, like, just like someone spends years just putting it into a book, it's the same thing with a presentation. There's information there. So I would highly advise, again, just take some notes. If you can take some notes, please take some notes and really get yourself to the next stage. That's the way I did it. That's the way it's really, if you want to do something, there's psychological facts to this that I'm saying in terms of writing down notes, and religious hadith that say this. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, if you want to remember something, he goes, write it down. And in terms of psychological factors, how the brain is wired, that's been also, like, it's got credence as well. So overall, I would highly recommend in terms of you doing that, in terms of how you move forward, and place yourself where, man, I want to learn, I want to develop myself, I want to take myself to the next stage. And that becomes essential in terms of who you are. So ultimately, guys, that's what we went through yesterday. Today, I got something really cool for you. And it's just, this is the basis of understanding personality right now. And it's called the 5-factor model, but I'm going to take you through that step by step. So if you truly want to find out who you are tonight, like, this is the night you want to take some notes. And the presentation, I'm actually going to do this presentation. I'm going to offer it as a class on my website. So and actually put it in modules and piece it up. But this is essential for you to understand who you are. And this is the 5-factor model has been around since 1916. There's about at least 1,000 studies each year that pass through the 5-factor model. This is actually what I use with my clients in terms of understanding and decoding this stuff and kind of taking it to the next level. So what I would tell you overall, guys, like, really take yourself to the next stage. And there's a lot of cool stuff in tonight's presentation. So if you know someone who is interested in stuff like this, maybe interested in psychology, these kinds of things, I think this would be an incredible presentation for them. And anybody, it's going to be fun. Why? Because it's going to kind of give you a scale of to weigh yourself on, and how are you categorized? How is your personality? Where do you sit? And it's going to give you equations. And I'm going to give you some examples of what field you should go into if you're high on one of the 5 factors. I'm going to give you some examples that how I use these things to help people determine even their career and how they move forward. So let me give you a little bit about the 5-factor model. The 5-factor model is overall, it's about over 4,000 characteristics that have been streamed down into 5 factors and overall 30 facets. What that means, within each factor, there's 6 facets. And it's actually an exam. The exam is also on my website if you choose to. It's called the personality exam. You can go wissambazzi.com, and it's free right on there. So I would tell you that if you can take the exam and look at it. It's really, really cool, but it takes a higher level also. If you can use it for general things, it's great. It'll spit out equations for you, and it'll tell you exactly who you are. But it's when someone who's really well versed in the actual exam itself, they can connect the dots. So it's not, you really got to know how to read it, but take the results that it gives you automatically. But it's really, really cool. It's a really cool exam, a personality exam. And this is like the highest level in terms of these kinds of things. So before I begin, let's start it off the right way. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبو القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Guys, tonight's book is really, really cool. This is, again, this is a book of, I would tell you it's more of an academic book. It's definitely university level in terms of studies and everything else, but this is an amazing book. As I was going through my undergrad with this, it's actually, I ended up buying the book. I didn't need the book, but I ended up buying it in terms of the class afterwards. Why? Because at the end of the day, the way it was so amazing in terms of the book itself. So I ended up buying it. It's an amazing resource for you to really understand relationships at a completely different level. And it talks a lot about some of these things. And I may even do a straight presentation from this book on its own. So if you want this book, this is a great book in terms of having it in your library in terms of understanding. And if you're having trouble, like literally in your relationship, this is a great resource. It's a great resource. I think it's a 300 or 400 level class, but it's incredible in terms of the information that's in there. It's an excellent book. All right, so there we go in terms of that. Let me get started in terms of the presentation itself. I'll share my screen. Please take some notes. This is something really, really cool, and it's going to be it's a fun presentation tonight. It's got a lot of information, but really categorize yourself. So categorize yourself in terms of what you think you may be on these things. And a lot of these tests and these personality exams, they're self-report measures, meaning that they ask you the question, and they're usually maybe 200, 300 questions sometimes. In this one, it's got a long version of 300 questions. There's a short version of 120 questions in terms of if you want to take the personality exam. But this is going to be really cool, so take down some notes, okay? So here we go. All right, guys. So tonight's presentation is really understanding your personality. Where do you fit? Do you fit in? There's going to be 5 factors. I'm going to give you the high, and I'm going to give you the low, and you judge yourself in terms of how it works. I'm going to give you each factor, and it spells out this word right here, ocean. These are the 5 factors. It's an acronym for the 5 factors, okay? And I'm going to take you through each one, and I'm going to give you a high, and I'm going to give you a low, and I'm going to give you, if you are high, it's this. If you are low, it's this. It's going to give you certain personality traits on each side. It's really, really cool. So take down some notes. You're going to love it at the end, okay? Number 1, openness to experience. Some people who are like that, I'm not going to go into these too much. They love to experience things. All they see is opportunity in terms of these kinds of things. They're highly creative. Excellent, excellent factor in terms of your creativity. Conscientiousness, planner. This is a person who's constantly thinking ahead. Some people drive themselves crazy when they're like that because they're so dutiful, okay? Now, number 3, introversion and extroversion. Extroversion is literally like the positive factor. If you are high in extroversion, you're usually very happy. You like to be around people. You like to be the center of attention. Agreeableness. This is a great thing. People love you, but you have a hard time saying no to people. It's going to be difficult for you. And I'm giving you these general perspectives, so I just hook you and just like, whoa, that's me in terms of what I'm doing. And the last one is neuroticism. Neuroticism, You want intimate relationships. You want to connect. You want to know people. Oh my God, if you're high in this one, you might be a little bit impulsive and emotionally unstable. So, and watch how these things are going to develop as we move forward. These are really, really cool. It's a really cool exam. All right, so let's move forward. In terms of the first one, if you are high in openness, okay, openness, let's see what it means. Okay, this is a suggestion in terms of what area and career you are in, you should go into. So a person, and I'm going to give you exactly the traits. If you're high or you are low, okay, I'm going to give you the traits right after this in terms of each slide. So I'm going to introduce the subject to you, what it is. Then from there, I'm going to give you the highs and the lows. Okay, if you're high in openness, meaning you want to experience everything, you want to touch everything. Okay, this is a person who's kind of, they could be like ADHD. Like, please guys, I want to say something, and it's just a side note. Okay, don't label people ADHD. Like, don't just diagnose people in terms of that. Let's say they are, like, with these kinds of, they have these things. It's very difficult to have these kind of syndromes. Don't just go off on your own and just, like, it's such an overused word. But this is just a side note. All right. So if you are high in openness, meaning you love experiences, you want to touch and feel everything. Okay. You want to be in the middle of the woods. The next thing, you want to be on top of a mountain skiing. You like experience. You like to do things like that. You may be high in openness. Now, you're oriented towards what? If you are high in openness, entrepreneurship, business. This is something people like that. They like change. They don't like to stick around. You put a person like this behind a desk, bam, it's like literally you shot them in the head. They can't. It's very difficult for them. They're highly creative, okay, in terms of that. Now, high in openness, but low in conscientiousness. I'm just giving you certain factors here that maybe, I'm not going to give you specific elements. I'm just giving you some proper probabilities, okay? This is what's going to happen if you're like this, okay? You're going to be impatient. You're not going to want to tolerate people. Conscientiousness is this: people who plan ahead and always are thinking forward versus somebody who's in the moment. High in conscientiousness, they're usually planning ahead, okay? Low in conscientiousness, I don't want nothing to do with that. I'm just living in the moment. I want to laugh, but I don't care about my bills in terms of what's coming up next, but I'm having fun and I'm spending my money, but I'm in debt, okay? Be very careful with that one, but at the end of the day, that's how they live. All right, so now you're going to be impatient. Number two, you are not going to do paperwork. You don't like paperwork. Like I told you, you put this person behind a desk, they're not going to like it, okay? No follow-ups. They will not follow. They have a hard time with follow-ups and stuff like that because their mind is all over the place, okay? You're a mess. So find someone who is high in conscientiousness. Why? Because someone who's highly conscientious, you know what they're like? They're orderly, meaning they like order. You walk into their room, it's like spick and span. It's tidy. If you walk into your room and it's a mess, understand you may be high in openness, okay? But you need someone to balance you out in terms of these kinds of things. So if you're like that, and it's usually highly creative people make amazing CEOs, but they're like all over the place in terms of their mind sometimes. So they need high-level secretaries who are usually high in conscientiousness, or they need a really good CFO, okay? The chief financial advisor. Why? Officer. Why? Because at the end of the day, they're all over the place. And a person like that's got to be organized. So they need help being organized. All right. So you need dynamic opposition. So that's what we talked about. Get someone who is high on the other end. Okay. You're in chaos. You love quicksand. Okay. People in real estate, their paycheck depends on what they do today. So that's quicksand. That's living in quicksand versus someone who's just got a job and it's guaranteed a check at the end of the week. A real estate agent, in terms of sales, any types of salespeople, there's no guarantee at the end. There's no guarantee that you're going to get a paycheck. So there's a difference in even the personality types. All right. When you are open, all you see is what? Opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. That's how they see things. Oh my God, I want to do this. Oh my God, I want to do that. Oh my God, I want to do this. They have a hard time picking a direction. Now, motivation and orientation, okay? Want to engage in creative activity. These people love creativity. They're usually into the arts, music, these kinds of things. Okay. They're usually horizontal in thinking, meaning they're like to do 100 things and 1 inch down, versus someone who's doing one thing and 100 inches down. There's a difference. But these people are highly adaptive. They can adapt. They're so cool. And they're usually high in emotional intelligence, usually. Okay. But where their weakness is, they can't make, like, they can't, they're so lateral, and they can't stay on one thing for long enough to create success. So this is some of the problems that people like that have. All right. So watch this. This is so cool now in terms of, I'm going to give you some factors that will bring you to understand if you're high in openness or not. All right. So on this, we're going to talk about high or what? Or if you are low. If you're high, you're going to be here. If you're low, you're going to be here. All right. So listen to these characteristics in describing someone who's high in openness. They are creative, curious, curiosity. They're very curious in terms of enjoy change. So they like things that are dynamic. If they have routine, they can't handle it. They need a different situation to happen with them every single day. Okay. Prefer complexity. They're usually deeper people. If they're looking at a flower, they'll start talking about it in a philosophical way. Okay. These are usually the type of people that love this kind of thing. Okay. Very imaginative. They can really, really take themselves to a whole nother level. Okay. Listen now to the con of this. Ignore details. So they miss things. Why? Because they're all over the place in terms of all the time. They can't stay. It's like you give them a folder of tasks. They'll get to like task 3, then they'll want to jump to another folder. Instead of finishing the folder, what do? They go 1, 2, go sideways. 3, go back to 2, go sideways again. Okay. They're like that. They maneuver that way. Okay. Trouble deciding. Why? Because they're always horizontal. I don't know which one to pick, versus someone who's lateral. Okay. Take too much information. They love detail. They're always in the detail. All right. But you ask them, okay, how did you get here? I don't know, because they don't categorize. They literally don't categorize, and they go so deep in terms of the detail. They're always looking at the detail. They get lost, even in their mind sometimes. So these are some of the things that if you're high in openness, these are really the cool things. Okay. These are not so cool, the things you may need to work on. All right. Let's go if you're low on openness. All right. So this is like, you don't like creative. This is what's going to happen. You're going to be traditional, prefer security, meaning what? You want a paycheck at the end of the week. I need that guarantee. I don't care. That's practical for me. They're very practical people. Okay. Like simplicity. They're not complex. They like simplicity and what? Routine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. This person is 1, 7, 2 million, 3. That's how they work. These people like the top. They like chaos. They like change. These people, stability. They like stability. They like order. Okay. What happens if you're like this? Trouble adapting, meaning if I need to go horizontal and I need to see, okay, what happens if I go 1, 2, 3, then I need to shift the sideways. They won't be able to do that. So they freeze here. This person will freeze. If they're low on openness, they'll freeze. They won't know what to do because they need to see the next step. Otherwise, they won't move. This person who's up here, they can adapt quickly. They can move. And they like to live in the moment, versus a person like this who's, they're thinking ahead. This is a part of what also that aspect. Okay. Sometimes miss the forest for trees. What? Because they're like this and they're like this. They don't want to see anything else. They won't do this. They'll always do what? This. And they're very rigid. They won't move. Okay. They're like this. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, لا تكن قاسي فتكسر ولا تكن لين فتعصر. Okay. So don't be too rigid. You can be broken. And don't be too lean. You may be squeezed. So on that level, you got to understand, you got to know which one is which in terms of what you're doing, and then move forward. All right. So that's openness, guys. Let's say you're high in conscientiousness. I'm going to explain to you what that is. I'm going to move with that a little bit quickly because I'm afraid I'm going to run out of time. Okay. If you're high in conscientiousness, you're gonna like to go. You are oriented towards managerial activities. Okay, so what that means is because you need a lot of organization. That's what happens here. So that's the way it works. Okay, disagreeable people, which is going to come up next, you're going to see also have a managerial orientation if they are not too disagreeable. This is a very interesting perspective when you get to agreeableness and and disagreeableness. Okay, now let's see if you're high on a conscientiousness or low on conscientiousness. Again, you're going to see what conscientious means here. Okay, so number one, if you're high or if you're low. All right, so people who are high on conscientiousness, they're very organized, usually very persistent, reliable, planners, achievement oriented. They want to do things. Okay, you need to be high in conscientiousness in certain ways to get yourself like pass through, like get yourself to the PhD or get yourself to a high level in terms of who you are and what you're trying to do. So this is a person who plans like years and years. Somebody wants to be a doctor, it takes them maybe 10 to 12 years from their first start. That's not easy. That's not an easy road to begin. Okay, but let's say somebody wants to plan to be a president when they turn 20 and they actually achieve it. That's a really long road in terms of what you're doing. So guys, it's really these couple of people are high on conscientiousness, can be workaholics. So they're like that, they love to work. They're always achievement motivated. Okay, they want to get things done, can be excessively organized. This, if you live with a person like this and they're always, they need order, they can be very difficult to live with in terms of this aspect only. I'm not saying they might be great people, but they'll just be the critic. Why did you put this here? How did this work here? Oh my God, here. That's the way it works. Oh my God, you put your phone, you need to turn it a little bit when you put it down. They can be that crazy about things. And they have these feelings, they can't help them. Okay, they can't help it. Now, let's say you're low on conscientiousness. You're usually aimless, don't like to plan too far ahead. Okay, you're lax spontaneous. They love spontaneity. Please just put me in the moment. A lot of people like this will kind of put aside their responsibility is very urgent, and they will actually go towards the fun side and become really somewhat hedonistic. So you got to be very careful with stuff like this, because I'll go with the temptation of the moment, and I will go with short-term gain but long-term pain, and I won't care, and that's the way my life is. So think of someone's credit score. I'll just take the money, spend it, then I don't want to pay it back. Okay, I'll ruin my credit score, then years down the line I'm trying to get a house I can't. That's just the way it works. Okay, hedonistic in terms of what we just said, dislike detail. Just don't bother me. I don't want to know. And if you criticize someone like this, they'll just put you in your place right away. They're like, I don't want to listen to you. Okay, don't. Let's say somebody's high on conscientiousness, going with. And by the way, guys, in your relationship, okay, with your wife, or a husband to a wife and a wife to a husband, if you guys are too far off on these kinds of things, it can cause a lot of trouble. And you want to be on the same domain with these kinds of things. All right, so unreliable, if you're low, unreliable, trouble meeting deadlines, trouble keeping focus. Because again, I don't like to plan, I don't like to think of the future, I like to be in the moment. Big issue here in terms of the distinction between the two. All right, so that's conscientiousness. High in extroversion. All right, if you are high in extroversion, you are gonna like sales. You're gonna like being in the moment. You like to wheel and deal. You like to haggle. You like to. Your verbal skills are very good in terms of what you're doing. Excuse me, guys. But this is, at the end of the day, it's the feel good factor, meaning people who are high on conscientiousness, they're usually the center of attention. They usually, so I'll give you an example with me. I scored 98 on conscientiousness. Out of 100, I scored 98. So I was really high in conscientiousness. Okay. On extroversion, I scored 92. And on neuroticism, I scored 1. So you'll see what neuroticism is. But these kinds of things are so, they're so important in terms of understanding these kinds of things. Okay, so motivation, orientation, people, and they want friends. They like to be around people. They want friends. A lot of people know a person who's like this. Okay, they're usually the center of attention. They can be speakers. They can be people of somewhat high rank are usually high on extroversion and introversion. Again, like Abraham Lincoln was an introvert. Okay, it doesn't dictate anything, but understand this: extroverts can learn how to be introverts, and introverts can learn how to be extroverts. You can learn this, okay, and you can get yourself to the next level with this. So at the end of the day, these are dynamic, and you can change. You can change with any of these things, and it's just depending on what you want out of your life. But there's some things here when one of my clients takes an exam and I look at that or look at it for them, and I can connect the factors and the facets, and I see things in terms of their strategy, their strengths, and the things they really need to work on, their areas of opportunity where they need to develop themselves and take themselves to the next level. That gives me a strategy. So what I do is I take this exam, I do that, then I do an interview with them to confirm that everything that I'm doing. Then from there, we set up a strategy based on these things, 2 months, 3 months, sometimes 5 months. Sometimes it's a week-to-week strategy just to see maybe the things they need to work on is more inside of them first. So we have to clean up some decisions on the inside and go into maybe personal development first. Then we take it to the outside and kind of go over more of a 3, 4, sometimes a year ahead of time. It depends on the person really. But sales orientation, let's see what it is if you're high or low in extroversion. If you are high, you're outgoing, you're active, energetic, talkative, optimistic, fun, loving, okay? These people are really fun to be around, okay? They're really fun. They love energy, they love life, okay? Moments of emotional flight can be domineering, okay? This is a person who can be like if they do this right, they can be like the alpha male. They can kind of get themselves to that kind of stage. But at the end of the day, if they don't have control over, like, with, let's say they're high in conscientiousness, meaning they have very strong discipline and they're not in the moment and they're always planning ahead and they're high in extroversion. This person now it's a multiple talented person now, where they can plan and their emotions don't take flight on them. They can actually have control over their emotions. So it's really amazing, just the dynamics of the personality and where you could take yourself to. So that's if you're high. If you are low on extroversion, you're going to be reserved, kind of independent. You don't want to be bothered with people. You'd rather be at home than go to a gathering. That's how it works. Quiet, enjoy working alone. This is a person who wants to be on a desk by himself. Leave me alone. I don't care if you even put me in the basement. I'm fine. Okay. I just keep people away from me. That's the type of personality that will, you need to start to see here, guys, that certain characters are meant to be in certain lines of work. That's very important. That's very important. So once you understand that and you kind of see these things, this is huge for business, by the way. So many people, high-level businesses. So I was the VP of business development for a company, and in terms of these things, and it was a great company, and I thank God that I had the opportunity to do stuff like that. So I just want to say thank you, OSP, for giving me those opportunities. Incredible company, and I truly value the people who were there. So just a kind of shout out to you guys. So keep doing what you're doing, and God bless you guys. Reserved, like we said, independent, quiet, but at the end of the day, these personality tests are so huge. They're actually huge in major corporations. And so now let's move. Low energy, overly shy, lack social support because they don't connect to people. They don't connect to many people. Withdrawn. Okay. If you're like that, these may be personality traits. So 50% of your personality is genetic, guys. And there's something called epigenetics. I'm not going to get into that. It's a high level of study where genes are expressed by your thought process. Literally, Whatever you think, those genes inside of your body will be expressed based on your thought process. This is where the science is going to now. So your genetic code, you can change it by your thought process. And I'll give you, hopefully I can give you some more on this stuff. Again, a lot of these presentations, guys, are going to be on my website. They're going to be out here in terms of Mainstay. Follow these things. They're very important. And on Friday, I don't know if you guys have heard, but on Friday, we're going to also be having a presentation with some of my brothers in terms of the speaking world. I love you guys. I think you guys are amazing. Keep doing what you're doing. And we're going to be together on 6:30, I think, here. So follow us there. All right. So extroversion. In terms of this, now, high in agreeableness. Guys, I really want to warn you about this one and be very careful with it. If you're high in agreeableness, I'm going to give you a lot of things that really can hurt you, but it can help you as well. So customer service, you're oriented towards customer service. You like taking care of people. Why? Because usually you're going to put people's needs before yours, and you're going to see that. Okay. Hard time saying what? No to people. They have a hard time setting boundaries, and you can be passive aggressive. That's if you're high in agreeableness. Okay. In terms of these kinds of things, meaning you won't state because you won't state what you want because you feel like if you take what you want, you're harming the other person. So at the end of the day, here's what I want you guys to understand. Overall, this is beautiful in terms of making friends. Everyone likes you. And this is great when you are a person that's like this. But at the end of the day, if you can't set boundaries for people, you're going to always be frustrated. You may have anger problems, and you may develop things in terms of even psychological problems on the line. I'm not going to get into that too much, but motivation orientation. Let's go into that. Okay. Agreeable person does what? Okay. They want intimate relationships. They love intimate relationships. Okay. So I scored on this. I think I was like a 50 something, 50. I can't remember exactly, but I was like really in the middle. And you want that. You want to kind of be a very strong dynamic when you need to be, and then you need to be agreeable when you need to be. So it goes a high level of negotiation. And so you're not too rigid, and you're not too what? People, you can draw the boundaries really quickly for people, and you can tell people yes when you need to. You can tell people no when you need to. But guys, I really want to like tell you guys something here. If you're too agreeable, it's a problem. If you're disagreeable, it's also a problem because you become too rigid, and people don't want to be around you. When you're hot, when you're low, and I'm going to show you how that works. But at the end of the day, you want to be very careful with this, because this will skew your justice scale. This is a very good indicator of your justice scale in terms of who you are. You have to be able to see both sides of things. Even by somebody tells you one side of the story, you can see the other side automatically. That's how good people get. Okay. I've trained people like this, where you can actually get that good, where you can see the other side of the story based on one version of it. Okay. You can see, and you can take decisions, literally cutthroat decisions. And I want to say just to a person who I was with today, and I want you guys to keep them in your dua. But this is a person who's a very special client for me, and they're going through a lot, but this guy's facing millions and millions of dollars in terms of just what's happening. But it's incredible. It's incredible how these things work, and his strength, and how he's pushing himself to the next stage. It's incredible to me, but I love it. I love the challenge. But for me, I'm not even here. They're in a completely different state. They're not even here. So I can't even meet them face to face. But based on one version of the story, I can literally tell the other side of the story. It's incredible when you can learn that skill. That's a skill set that can be learned. All right. So, but a person like this, they seek intimate relationships. They want that closeness. All right. Disagreeable person, watch this, wants to win. They're very competitive. So if you're an agreeable person and you sit down across the table, especially a business table, and you sit down with someone, and they're like, this person wants their half and they want your half because they're disagreeable. Okay, they want to compete with you. They can get 51 versus your 49. That's okay with them, as long as they can outdo you. All right, but they're going for the full pie. They want 100%. They want their half and they want your half. Imagine you sit on a table and you're like, yeah, this is 50-50 because you're agreeable. You're high in agreeableness. Then if you do the math, they're going to take the whole pie. Because if a disagreeable person sits across the table with an agreeable person, they're gonna take everything from them, especially if they're highly skilled in negotiation. It's amazing how this happens, okay? And so, because they're very competitive, people like that are very competitive. All right, let's look how this, if you're high or you're low, okay? If you're high, friendly, approachable, tolerant, cooperative. Does that sound like it's a business person for you? Okay, and I'm not telling you that agreeable people can't be businessmen. They're actually great in business if they can learn how to manage. It's a weapon, but you got to learn how to manage the weapon. All right. Difficulty asserting what? Self. Avoid conflict. Bam. Huge. Guys, conflict is huge in terms of a relationship. And I'm going to give you something that's very important. And if you haven't listened to anything in this presentation, listen to this. Okay. Now, I want you to understand. I want to give you an analogy, and this is going to be in the book, Building Mental Muscle. And this is something very special for me because I love this analogy in terms of understanding that. And when I put this together, I think it was it was very profound for me in terms of just understanding relationships. And I want you to understand that, let's say you're a blacksmith and you're trying to shape a sword. The heat is the emotion. A blacksmith has to apply heat to the metal. The metal is your relationship that you're going to fashion into a beautiful relationship, which is a beautiful sword. So he's fashioning the metal, and he has to put heat. Heat is conflict at the end of the day, meaning disagreeableness, meaning go towards conflict. Don't be afraid. But a person like this, they're actually afraid to go towards conflict because they have a hard time asserting who they are. This may be underneath some self-esteem issues, some identity issues, if you're high in agreeableness sometimes in terms of these kinds of things. But a person will come up to you, they're high in agreeableness, and they'll tell you, like, listen, but I am assertive and I am this. They're not assertive with authority figures. They're assertive with people who they can control. They're not assertive with people who are over them or a person who's just completely outside of that. Okay. They're usually very agreeable with these kinds of things, and they have a hard time even climbing the ladder. So pretty much anybody will eat their food in terms of these kinds of things. Now, they avoid conflict. Here's what a blacksmith does. He puts on the heat. So you need to put on a heat in terms of going towards aggressiveness versus passiveness. A person like this, in terms of high in agreeableness, they're usually very passive. They're inclined to be passive. You need to learn how to go to become assertive and even aggressive in terms of what you're doing. The more you go towards this side of the scale and aggressiveness, guess what happens? You're going towards conflict, which is you're putting on more heat onto the metal. Now, what happens when you become passive aggressive? Because people like this are usually also passive aggressive. Okay. What happens? You can what? Put on too much heat at the wrong time. If you put on too much heat, you can disfigure the metal. If you put on too little heat, okay, which is being passive, you won't have enough heat to shape the metal. So you got to hit this right. And every situation is different. So you got to know what the temperature is. To know what the temperature is wisdom. To know when to be passive and to know when to be aggressive. This is the artistry of making decisions. It's wisdom. So it's presenting knowledge and placing it in the right place where you have to be assertive and aggressive, and you have to be assertive and passive. It's incredible how you can learn how to do that. This is mastery. This is artistry, guys. This is the way it works. So really learn that one. All right. So ignore need. Okay. I'm not going to get into that. We'll go further. All right. Critical, willing to change. Okay. This is not willing to change. That's what it should say. Not willing to change. Okay. Want personal acknowledgement. All right. So they're critical. This is a critic. Somebody they're never going to see your side of the story. They're always going to see something that's deficient. Okay. This is the critic. If somebody's low in agreeableness, this is the critic. This is the person 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in terms of the way they work. All right. Now, but some people can actually vary between the two depending on their situation. If you're a really smart person, you can actually vary in this, which is scary. Okay. But it's not scary that it's bad. It's just you won't know when to do things, and you'll actually confuse yourself in certain ways. I'm not going to get into this way too much because it can get really complex, guys. I have this like personality test in my head. So I'm very well, you know, I understand it highly. So from here, now they can be rude, self-serving, not a team player, and even hostile. This is if you're low on agreeableness, and you may know people who are like this. All right. So now, this is the last factor, and this is neuroticism. And I really want you to pay attention to this one, because this one is another factor. It's just opposite of what extroversion, which is the happy factor. This is the sad factor. This is the depression factor. This is the anger. This is the anxiety. Okay, this is where they sit. All right. So here, impulsive and emotionally unstable. If you're high on this, that's what can happen to you. The feel bad factor. So that's the way it works, and they want security. That's their motivation. So this person is constantly, they're maybe paranoid, highly anxious, always cortisol is being released. They're always under stress. They're always worried. Okay. So they want that security. They constantly need that security. All right. So let's see what happens if you're high in neuroticism, if you're high or low. All right. Unstable. If you're high in neuroticism, unstable, impulsive, negative emotions, pessimistic. All right. This is what can happen in terms of that factor and how it works. Now, here it's very important that you understand there's positives to these. On all of these, there's positives. Guys, this is not like if you're high here or you're low here. Please have it looked at by a professional. That's when you really start understanding how these things are. If you're high or low, it's depending on the other factors as well in terms of the way it's weighed out. Okay, so it doesn't, if you're high on, let's say, neuroticism and you're low on conscientiousness, meaning you're impulsive in terms of your emotions and you can't plan. So you're going to have a hard time making decisions. I'm just giving you examples in terms of how it weighs itself. Okay, but let's say you're really high on conscientiousness and you're really low. Like I scored 98 on conscientiousness and I scored 1 on neuroticism. So I'm highly stable in terms of my emotions. And I understand my emotions very well. It's called emotionality, like I told you, but I'm very well controlled under that. Thank God I'm like that, but I had to work. I wasn't always like that, guys. Okay, I had to really work on myself to get myself to these kinds of things where I can like literally, I'm going to be honest with you. I can literally shut down my emotions in a second. Not because I'm trying to hurt someone or I'm trying to manipulate. No, not at all. It's all about your intention at the end of the day. And your iman stems from here. And if you have that fear of Allah in terms of that, and when it hits your chest, that I can't do this. And these are weapons. What I'm telling you right now is weapons. When you understand people at this level, you become weaponized and you can manipulate very easily. But your intention has got to stay so pure, because you can maneuver. You can maneuver very well in terms of what you do. So here, these also have strong strengths. Even if you're high in neuroticism, maybe you should knock down a little bit. No problem. I'm not saying no, but it could be a strength as well in terms of these kinds of things. All right. So difficulty coping, meaning they can have, if they have stress, high levels of stress, they have a hard time emotionally regulating. Okay. Trouble tolerating frustration, meaning they can be in high anxiety for too long and they can't take on stressful situations. So I want you to think of like the President of the United States in terms of his stress, regardless of who's in charge in terms of the presidency. I'm just giving you, use that example. What kind of stress a person like that? And actually do some research on when presidents enter the White House and when they leave, the amount of stress in terms of the way they age is incredible. And you can actually do some research on that. Okay. Risk for distress. They can really get distressed. All right. And they can really like have high palpitations of the heart. They can have panic attacks. These things can happen. All right. So from here, that's how it works. Emotionally stable, calm, and resilient. If you are low on neuroticism, they're emotionally stable, calm, and resilient, meaning they're always going to be trying. They fail, they're going to try again. They fail, they're going to try, but they're calm, they're collected. وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. وَالضُّحَى, Allah swears by the dawn. Okay? He swears by it. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى, then the stillness of the night. It's that calmness of that night. You walk out in the middle of the night, and let's say you're waking up, and it's mustahab to pray outside. You go outside, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and you just hear the night, the stillness. It's incredible. It's an incredible thing. Look up into the midnight blue in terms of that. It's so beautiful when you actually, it's warm outside and you can lay down your sajda and your salih, and then you can actually go into the prostration to Allah under the stars. It's really, really incredible feeling. but it's that calmness, it's that stillness. That's a weapon. If you can learn how to do that, stillness and calmness with an underneath confidence. Oh my God, what happens? You will shake the ground when you walk if you can do that. And at the end of the day, to do this, this is what you got to do. You got to have emotions that are stable, meaning have sincerity in your heart, the truth on your tongue, and present the truth through wisdom. Sincerity in the heart, the truth on your tongue, and present the truth through wisdom. You will gain that calmness. And then when you drop the outcomes, you will drop the fear. I've given you all this before, but I'm giving you this how it works, okay? And you will not release cortisol in a pressured situation. You will release serotonin, which keeps you calm, collected. It's different neurotransmitters, guys. And your brain will fire it. Your genetic physiology will be different. Understand that. Just based on how you think. It's incredible. It's incredible. I'm going to talk about maybe epigenetics. I hope I can get to it, but I'm not sure. So the month of Ramadan is very fast approaching in terms of ending. All right. This is the last thing I'm going to talk about. Difficulty with empathy, unresponsive emotionally. So these people can be like robots. But at the end of the day, if you're high in emotional intelligence and you have that, and you can actually feel, you can empathize with people, and you can actually feel their heart. You can use the gauge of your heart. So you can tap into that person's heart and you can actually feel the same emotion that they feel. You are highly empathetic in terms of an empath. So in terms of the empath aspect, I actually scored, I think 92, or I think it was 90 something in terms of that. But so I'm in terms of my emotional intelligence, I'm there in terms of these kinds of things. I'm giving you these guys because I don't want to say anybody else's score. But at the end of the day, these are very important for you to understand. Man arafa nafsa, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, man arafa nafsa, faqad arafa rabbah. So whoever knows himself, which is the journey to the inside, will know Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah is using you as the criteria to get to know Him. So why do I love hubbul jamal, hubbul kamal, hubbul khayr? These things are imprinted inside of me. Why do I like these things? This is Allah's fingerprint inside of you. It's your genetic code and how you come. This is inside your what? Subconscious mind, your implicit subconscious mind. You have to find, and I'm going to do a presentation on this, by the way, I think Friday. And I'm going to talk about what is it? What is an-nafs al-mutma'inna? What is it? Ya ayyuha an-nafs al-mutma'inna. Okay, Allah talks about this, and I'm going to talk about those stages, and I'm going to talk about the difference between the conscious and subconscious mind, and what it means to become a nafs al-mutma'inna. I'm going to give you those stages and how it works, and I'm going to give you an example of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and finally the stages of actually bringing yourself to capturing the subconscious mind. So don't miss that one. That's very important. And if you want someone to really understand to a highly Quranic / philosophical / somewhat psychological, somewhat in terms of soul development, okay, in terms of and finding your identity, a completely different stage, and even spiritual, get someone to watch that one. And I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. These things are not easy to simplify, but I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible in terms of that one. So be empathetic if you're like this, in terms of learn how to connect to other people. If you are like this and you have a hard time connecting on an emotional level, so your emotional code is not there 100%, I would tell you there's something called empathy training, and there's actually things you can go through to actually build that in yourself. So guys, I hope this was helpful. Again, I'm going to redo this in a class on my website in terms of this, in terms of you can get it there and actually send yourself to a whole nother level with these kinds of things. So please, at the end of the night, go through this again if you really want. These PowerPoints are going to be, they're going to be put up. So these presentations are being put up all the time on YouTube. So you can go back and reassess yourself and kind of take yourself to the next level. So guys, I'm grateful. My time is almost up in terms of what I'm doing. If you guys have any questions or concerns or anything like that, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, all over in terms of these kinds of things, even LinkedIn.
don't be afraid. Like send something. And I'm not, and I have a lot of people who've reached out to me, and I'm so grateful. I'm honored. And I have a lot of stuff that's coming out all the time, because some people are really asking me, where do I go? I'm getting invites like on Facebook. I can't take on any more friends. So there's a page that I have. I'm just saying this stuff, not for self-promotion, but at the end of the day, there's just requests that are coming in. I promise I will just actually say something. So I'm saying something now in terms of these kinds of things. So keep yourself moving, keep developing yourself. These things are, again, like I told you, they're going to be up. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.